Alright guys, thanks for stopping in, checking out this video. What we got here today is something pretty cool. Probably one of the coolest things I've ever been a part of as far as like softball and stuff goes. I had the chance to sit down with Combat's VP, Don Cooper, and I had originally planned on just having a couple questions here and there and making a quick interview of it. We ended up on the phone for over half an hour. It was pretty cool. I was really glad to be a part of something like that. Thanks goes out to Don Cooper for taking the time out of his busy day. I know he's got a million things on his plate right now. I can't say enough thanks for him to take the time out of his day to let me pick his brain. Got some good topics in here. I'm not going to spoil any of it. Need to sit down and watch. I guess technically listen. It's just a phone interview, so pop in a headphone, turn on the TV, run around the house, plug it into the car radio, whatever you need to do. Definitely some good info here as far as what the brand has going forward, what his plans are going forward. Even got into a little bit of conference talk, conference U-Trip talk, and that kind of thing. All kinds of good stuff in there. So sit down and check it out. You'll hear me stumbling over my words because I'm a nervous wreck. Don Cooper is arguably one of my favorite people in slow pitch softball. I could sit and listen to that guy talk about softball for hours. I've been a fan of his ever since back in the Combatants days, and same holds true now. I could sit and listen to that guy do, the broadcasts and things like that on the live feeds for Conference U-Trip and all that stuff. I could sit and listen to him talk for hours. So to even have the honor to have a half an hour of his time meant the world to me. So thanks, Don Cooper. Thanks everyone for checking this out. Share it around. All kinds of good information in here. I'm done talking. Let's get to the video.
Okay, yeah. I just want to say, first of all, thank you for your time.
Yep.
You didn't have to do any of this stuff, but I do appreciate your time. Let me pick your brain here for a few minutes. We can dive right into things, or if you have any questions for me or anything like that, what kind of time frame are you working with?
Fire away.
Okay, just get things started here. What got you into slow pitch softball?
A couple of my friends actually, I want to admit how long ago, asked me to come play. And I said I would never in my wildest life come play that. It's the dumbest game in the world. One morning, I was actually rehabbing a knee injury while in college. They said, well, come on, just come take BP with us. And so I went and hit, and I couldn't believe that it was as hard as it was, or they were better at something than I was. And I kind of got addicted from that day on, and that was 30 years ago.
It's all just been moving forward since then.
Yep.
What's your favorite slow pitch softball moment, if you had to pick just one?
Ooh, wow, that's tough. It's a great question. It's a fair question. I don't know if I could pick one. I mean, I enjoy the women's game so much since I started coaching it. And I think I've actually gotten more personal pleasure out of coaching the women's game and coaching than I ever did playing. So I mean, there's been a couple of world titles that have happened for the girls, and I've those moments, knowing how hard they worked, is probably for me the best. But the other side of it is I've met so many people, traveled so many places, so it's hard. I mean, I've had the privilege of going to Europe and Ireland and South America to do softball clinics, and I would have never thought that would have ever happened. And stood in the middle of a big patch of grass in Ireland with people lined up to have infield, be taught how to run an infield or to do hitting clinics. You're thinking, man, pinch me. How can I be standing here? And how did softball get me here? So it's been a lot. It's been a hell of a ride.
That sounds pretty cool. The whole worldwide thing definitely makes things interesting, and I'm sure for you as well, and all the travel and the experiences to go along with it.
Yeah, most definitely. There's many places that I'm sure I would have never. And even here, I mean, when I've ever gone to Mobile, Alabama, I'm a West Coast boy, born and raised, and I live in Seattle, and when I've been to Mobile, Alabama, or Tuscaloosa, or places like that are here in the United States, and saw beautiful parts of the country that I'm sure I would have probably never been to if it wasn't for the game. Played at midnight under the sun in Alaska and stuff like that. So it's taken me a lot of places that I'm sure I would have never seen.
That's definitely some pretty awesome stuff, man. What about your favorite combat of all time?
Dan Smith's Plague.
Ooh, that was a quick answer.
Yep, that's mine by a long ways. So it was the Silver Plague that everybody likes so much with a little bit more Enload in it, and it's my favorite bat of all time.
Definitely
my two favorite bats of all time are actually a PST, because I think it revolutionized the game of durability, when I was with Worth. And then my favorite composite still to this day is the Dan Smith Plague.
It definitely has to be a favorite among a lot of other people as well. I know that there's still people around here that swing combats that are all about the Dan Smith Plague.
Yeah, and we've done some versions of it, but it's to me it's that was the original one, and that was the one.
Good stuff. What about your favorite sanction to play and why?
Well, coming up as a pitcher, it's been U-Trip. I have a lot of respect for all the associations. I know how hard those guys work. I know how hard those guys work, putting programs together. So, but me personally on the field, being a pitcher, U-Trip was always my favorite and still is my favorite. Just because I think it gives us some abilities to try to do some different things to get guys out. So, yeah, from a playing standpoint, U-Trip.
Cool. Talking about U-Trip, we can do some conference topics if you don't mind. What's your take on the U-Trip Classic M? I know there's been some grumblings of the ball being too hot, or maybe wanting to switch to a Classic Plus, or possibly even changing bat testing procedures moving forward. You got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I've always believed that the game should be controlled through the ball, and not that I've spent so many years with bat manufacturers, but the fact is that balls don't go home with players, and bats do. So
True.
We want to talk about are the bats too hot? Are they altered? Are they this? I think in the conference, because of the bat testing, and because of all things that have gone on, it's far less there than anywhere else. And I know some people will say, "Oh no, that's not true. Everybody cheats." I just don't believe that. There's too much. The risk reward isn't there. I think it's the cleanest part of the game. But if you really want to control the game at all levels, control it through the ball. They just don't go home. And, bats being altered or modified started long before composites ever came to the light of day. My first exposure to it was back in the aluminum days, and guys were telling me about it. And I almost didn't believe it. And then I met the guy that was doing it, and, they were doing things to aluminum bats, reweighting them, sleeving them, doing different things. So, as long as this has been going on, you look at wood, there's, who used to cork their wood bats, players have looked for that advantage. And to me, the way to control it is control the device that doesn't go home with the players, and that's the ball.
So would you think something like a Classic Plus would be a step in the right direction then?
Yeah, I mean, I think you need to get a lot of people involved. I personally like the 52-core ball because I know what the severity index from a safety standpoint it does, but there's too much bounce. I agree with the infielders that the ball bounces too much. So, I think somewhere between the 52 with the hop that's gone out of it, somewhere in that realm is what we need to get to on 300-foot parks. And I know there's a lot of really smart ball engineers out there from multiple different companies trying to work on that and figure it out. And it's something that all the associations are asking for and working with. So I think if we were able to put somebody on the moon, you would think we'd be able to figure out a 52-core ball that doesn't bounce.
Definitely. I would definitely have to agree there. What's your favorite conference tournament that you attend annually?
Well, selfishly, I love Seattle because it's 10 minutes from my house. I love the fact that it's a women's major and a men's major because I think it makes the park packed and it brings a lot of things to it. So for me on the West Coast, it's the Seattle major. I think it's really become a good event, and it's growing. I wish we could get more East Coast teams to come out here and enjoy it. And then after that, it's the Smoky. It's the granddaddy for a reason.
Yeah, I know a lot of guys have a lot of fun going to the Smoky, and it draws, a lot of people from all over the country just to go down there, especially in the Midwest.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I've been going there forever, and it's still, it's a lot of people will consider it the extra world tournament. Winning the Smoky because of being played, open home runs in front of the crowds and whatnot. It's kind of treated as an additional postseason event. I mean, a lot of people kind of think of it that way.
Definitely. You talk about Seattle. I, back in the day was a diehard combatant, and,
Yep.
all the guys in the combatant teams coming up and all that stuff. When the combatants was a thriving group on softball fans, what was that like for you and your company?
Oh, it's awesome, and it still is. I mean, it's changed, it's moved off of some stuff, but it's still a great group of people. That really to me was my first exposure to how important social media could be. And when that whole thing kind of spawned, and we go back to Gary Klein, aka the Hebrew Hacker, and all of those guys. It was a great group of people, and I don't even remember where I was. I was sitting somewhere, reading posts about from those guys, and I thought, I want to meet some of these people. So when we came up with the original idea of send me a letter of why you should come here and play in the major, and we'll all get together. I went to U-Trip to Don Leonatus and said, hey, I want to put a pickup team in a major, and that just didn't happen. He kind of explained why. He said, that sounds like a neat deal. Go for it. So, I was curious, would I get, 12 or 13 people that would send me a letter and say, hey, here's why I would come. Over a 36-hour window, I think we ended up with over 100 people wanting to come. And one of the toughest things we've ever did is try to narrow it down, and figure out how to get it here. And some neat stories come of that. There's a couple people that have been coming every year since then. I think that was 2007. Not 100% sure of that, but that come. There's been 2 years we ended up with 2 combatant teams because there were so many. Dave Hunter spearheaded it the last couple of years with Gary. Had to move on to other things, but it's a great group of people. It tells you what social media will be, and it also shows you what a culture is. And I think one of the things that we've seen in this industry is that many of the original manufacturers, be it bats or balls, were family-run businesses. The Hildreth and Bradleys with Louisville Slugger, and of course, the legendary Ray DeMarini and Jim Easton, and with the Worth, the Parrish family, the entire family. One of the things that as they've become more corporate, you've got corporate ownership now that owns them. Basically the market's chopped up into three large companies. I think everyone's trying to find a way to keep that kind of connection, that family orientation, that culture, and it's tough. It's tougher to do under a corporate culture, but it's something that we're striving to do, at PSG, trying to figure out how to do it. I know the other guys are too, but to me, that was one of the great things that have ever come from combat and from, social media and softball fans and whatnot, was the combatants and how it spawned bats and apparel and, everything really kind of spun out of that entire group.
Yeah, I will say, when I was with the combatants and I did the Derby Life program for a year, it was one of my favorite things is you could pick up the phone and talk to anybody in that warehouse that you wanted to. There was no jump through a flaming hoop or you talk to someone different. I mean, if, a person wanted to get a hold of you, they'd pick up the phone and call you, you'd answer the phone.
Right.
I always thought something like that was cool within a company.
Yeah, and we've tried to build it on that, and it's a cultural thing. I think part of that is being based in Seattle. So many companies up here have succeeded, and Starbucks probably being the largest one. And I'm exposed to it because of my wife, what my wife does there, and culture is the most important thing to them, and the fact that you don't lose touch, and you make sure that the only way you're going to learn is be involved with your customers. Sometimes you're going to get your butt chewed out. You're going to find out you really messed up, you fell down, but you got to be willing to have that conversation and learn from those things. And in the city up here, there's a lot of businesses. People don't realize, how many businesses were founded in this area. And when you listen to the leaders of those companies and you read the leaders of those companies' books and you just hear it up here, it's culture, 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 and it's staying in contact with your customer no matter how big or small you are. And something that we beat on here. And everybody, I think, in the entire softball world had my my email address and cell phone. And the only issue I ever had with it's amazing how many people on the East Coast can't quite comprehend time zones. So I don't mind so much the late night calls, but I thought I'd call you early at 7. Well, you are calling me early at 7 in New York, Bub, but it's 4 here,
Right, that's a nice wake up call, huh?
of course, my dumb butt doesn't ever turn it off, and I'll answer my phone. So that's a shame on me. But it's also part of who we were. That you could get a hold of anybody at any time.
Definitely, it was definitely pretty cool. Last thing in this conference and kind of U-Trip thing here, we got kind of sidetracked with the combatants and all that stuff. I could go on for hours about that. Everyone, is looking to be an up-and-coming rising star in the slow pitch scene. You got any tips or advice for any of those guys?
Play defense. I mean, that's to me, it's play defense, and I get so many videos of guys showing me I can hit balls 450 feet. And I'm like, yeah, I got guys that are playing 50 and 60 and over with me that can too, bub. Hitting is valued. It's important, but playing defense has become just as equally valued. And if you can't do them both, you're never getting to that level. And there's a lot of guys right now. You're going to tell me, I can hit 700. Well, where do you play? Well, I don't. Well, okay. A lot of guys that can hit 700. Can you hit 655 and play center field? Because that's way more important to me than a guy that can hit 700 and can only catch.
Very true.
So to me, it's when you're sending out and I think it's great to network and send things out and ask the coaches but sometimes ask those coaches about, or send that stuff about your defense. Talk about, what you can do. And the same thing is true for the women's. The women's conference is growing quickly. We have a 17-team Women's Major World Series in a week. It's one of the proudest things I've been a part of putting together. And I'll tell you what, the defense at that level is absolutely phenomenal. You have a pile of young ladies that were Division I, Division II fast pitch stars. We have former Olympic team members that are playing in the conference. You have NPF girls scattered out through all the top teams now. You have a lot of the teams from down south that maybe they weren't fast pitch players, but they were sprinters at FSU or they were sprinters in Alabama, and they can flat ass play defense. They can run the outfield, and to me that's the lost part of it when these teams, both male and female, are looking for a team or they're talking about how they deserve a break. None of them, I shouldn't say none. Rarely do I ever see anything. The ones that I pay the most attention to, the ones that I actually look at the videos, are the ones that send me their defensive stuff, or they send me, hey, this is what I do to work out. Here's what I do. I take 400 ground balls. I do this. That's what catches my eye, because we can typically help you with your swing. That's what the coaches at this level are supposed to do. But a skill set to play defense is extremely important.
Definitely, I would definitely agree there. You make some pretty good points. I'm fortunate enough to live about a half hour down the road from Kevin Bazat. Played a little bit of league with that guy,
yep.
And his glove is absolutely ridiculous.
Perfect example of a guy who got to the level because of his defense, and now has turned into a great offensive player. That's how he beat us last weekend in the conference single-handedly. He was 4 for 4 on Friday night with 4 home runs, and he hit the home run in the bottom of the 7th. There's a guy that 2 years ago you would walk 7 people to get to if you were up by 8 because you knew he was an out, and you just can't anymore. He's a very good hitter. He uses all parts of the field, but he got to a major team because of him playing defense, the way he carries himself. Kevin's a very nice young man. Watched out on the USA team as well. But that's a perfect example of getting there based on your glove, not getting there based on, me hit ball far.
Right. That's very true. You mentioned the Team USA stuff. What's been your favorite part about being involved in all that?
Oh, wow. A lot of different things. I mean, from the original concepts, a guy by the name of Kelly McEwen, who was at that job that had the job at ASA, who's no longer there. He's actually VP of the Oklahoma City Thunder, had called me about that and said, what do you think? Do you think this is possible? Could we get the teams to come play? Could we get the players? Because at that point in time, they were predominantly playing USSSA. And how would we go about this? And so to see it kind of come from that standpoint, all the way through to, coaching one of the teams. So, the whole concept, I mean, when you put the jersey on the first time, when you go out to coach a team and you're wearing USA on your uniform, it's a pretty cool feeling, no matter what level it is. When they walk in and all of our jerseys were hanging there with USA on the front of them. I mean, you get a little butterflies out, and if you don't, well, you probably have a few issues.
I can definitely see what you mean there. You mentioned PSG earlier. Moving into some, more recent topics with that stuff. If you're tired of talking about it, we don't have to. But I do know that Combat and Easton have been, I guess what you could say, consolidated by your parent company.
Yep. Yeah.
This is pinched down. Go ahead, sorry.
Yep. Yeah, Performance Sports Group purchased Combat originally. Of course, so the parent company of, well, actually, when we were purchased, it was Bauer. And then Bauer decided that the overall holding company said, we're going to become Performance Sports Groups. We didn't want to confuse the brands, because at that point in time, they owned Nadia, a leading soccer apparel company, Maverick, and Cascade Lacrosse. Cascade's the dominant helmet manufacturer in lacrosse, and also becoming a very dominant helmet, pitching helmet. If you see a lot of guys, Travis Clark and L.C. Watson, right? A lot of guys are actually wearing, that Cascade Lacrosse helmet as part of excuse me, as part of the personal protective gear pitching, and then Combat and Mission iTech and some other things. So they started Performance Sports Group basically so that we didn't confuse the brands with Bauer. About a year and a half after they had purchased Combat, they purchased Easton. And 7, 8, 9 weeks ago, the decision was made, based on business circumstances out there, to consolidate the two brands in together. And obviously, when you look at it, the smart decision is to consolidate everything into the Easton brand. It was, a much bigger, global brand than Combat was. We were still very much I wouldn't say a niche. I think we'd moved beyond a niche brand, but we were a very specialty brand, dealing specifically high end. We didn't deal in helmets or catcher's gear or personal protective stuff. We were a bat and apparel manufacturer with some phenomenal technology. And, this gives the PSG companies, Easton, the ability to, use the technology that, that PSG bought when they bought the company and level it out across the lines. And the Maxim brand, sub-brand of Combat is a dominant baseball brand out there right now, and getting a lot of traction in other sports as well, so they can continue the Maxim brand under the Easton infrastructure. So, I think it was a very good, sound, solid business decision that had to be made. And, the diamond space is an interesting space to be living in right now. And, Sports Authority shut down, and it was over 400 stores of retail that we lost, and Sports Chalet for the West Coast folks, was 50 stores of premium retail space, and we lost about another 200 specialty retailers over the last 3 years of your brick and mortar stores. I'm sure there were some back around you at one point in time that no longer exist, right?
Right. Oh yeah.
And so it's an interesting time out there. Unfortunately, participation is down. Kids want to play video games, or we can have Pokemon Go, get 1 billion people motivated to run around and look like idiots, but
you don't even get me started on that.
Getting someone to go take a ground ball, darn near takes an act of the Lord. So, it was a business decision that had to be made, and that's what you're ultimately in. It's to say it doesn't suck at some standpoint would be, a lie. And I think most people that know me know that's one thing I'm not. Combat was built on a culture. It was built on people like yourself who believed in the brand, supported the brand, and helped us grassroots and build the brand. So, you feel like you've let those people down a little bit. But today and age, we've seen it happen with the other brands as well. One of the things that I think is lost in all this when everybody talks about it is, DeMarini and Louisville are under one roof right now.
Right.
And, Worth, Mikan, and Rawlings are under one roof. And if you notice, Worth has eliminated fast pitch in baseball. Mikan's eliminated baseball. They're both just slow pitch brands out there right now that are competing for space. It's a consolidation world right now with participation numbers going down. And as we talked about earlier, corporate owned. They're not family owned businesses anymore. It's a corporate owned. They're all corporate owned. Which brings some good things to it. And you've seen some great technology advancement in the sport because you've had, large corporate R&D centers, and we've seen that with the Maxim product line and the Easton seeing it now with their new Easton Flex line that's out, and you see it in personal protective. So there are some good things that come from the corporate world of great R&D centers and some things like that. But, you're definitely the days of family-owned businesses in this space, they're gone.
Yes, I can definitely attest to, not even in the sporting goods wise, just, being in a rural area and seeing all the mom and pop businesses and all the small family-owned businesses. I mean, just like you said, corporate America is just, it's slowly taking over, buying all those places out. And, it kind of sounds like the same thing as what happened to you guys there.
Yeah. And like I said, it's a part of the process. And if if participation numbers were back at their historic highs or closer, it wouldn't be happening. But I mean, the fact is that the reality is that the numbers are shrinking, and it's not just in slow pitch softball. The numbers are shrinking in football. The numbers are shrinking in basketball. I mean, football's been really heavily impacted about it. You look at hockey, and you go to Canada, and you would from afar you look up there, and it looks like every single person up there plays hockey. Every kid must play hockey. It's Canada,
right?
And I think the number is 1 or 2 out of 10 play it. And the same thing, you go up there and you ask them, and they say, well, every single kid in the U.S. plays baseball, right? Well, no, it's 1 out of 12, or half a 0.8 out of 10. So it's not what it seems sometimes when you look at it. And so when I was a kid, it was probably closer to 3 out of 10 or 4 out of 10 that were playing. But that's just not the way it is anymore.
Right. Now, will Combat cease to exist after the Maxim line this year? There will no longer be a Combat brand, is that right?
It's a question that I don't think has been answered. I think it's a question that there are some folks out there that some dealers that have had such huge success with it that have asked for it to continue on. There's a lot of customers, a lot of end users have asked about it. So I don't think that part of the story, that chapter of the story has been written yet. I think depending on how Maxim does this year, depending on how a lot of different things occur. But right now the plan from what I've been told is that PSG and Easton are going to fully support the Maxim brand. They're going to fully support the combat that's in the field with promotions, as you've seen with both the men's and women's teams finishing out the seasons and supporting them. Philip Washington and the Long Haul Bombers tonight or tomorrow, the finals. Everything's going forward as far as supporting that. And I think what will determine year 2, year 3, year 4 will be what's the market's take on that product.
Right. I know this has been asked a lot. As for bats that are currently in stock at retailers, what will warranty returns be for those moving forward if the Combat does cease to exist?
Everything, all the new 2017 Maxim product is set up in the Salt Lake City warehouse, or in the process of being set up in the Salt Lake City warehouse. So you'll get a 2017 product back. In the case of youth baseball, small barrel, because of the rule changes and stuff, Combat didn't have much of it. So I believe what the go forward plan will be is you'll get an Easton 2 1/4 bat back. In that, but everybody that has warranties, there's a full warranty in place. Like I say, all baseball and fast pitch, all the new Maxim product is set up there. There's actually new Maxim slow pitch being set up in that building, and more coming into it. Maxim senior slow pitch there as well. The Easton sales force is out marketing the product line. We're shipping early launch stuff and late launch product to retailers right now. So if you have a bat, your warranty is valid. If you buy a bat off the shelf, your warranty is valid. If you buy a new 2017 Maxim will be there available to replace your bat.
Cool. Moving forward, is there any plan to, if per se, Easton does become the only brand, would you like to see, an Easton carry that signature Combat? The crack in the feel is one thing to me that's always drawn me towards a Combat. Will you push to possibly have something like that in the works?
I think there's, there was a lot of Combat sold, annually, and I think the folks over there are going to look at that technology and say, okay, this wasn't like there was only 10 of these being sold. There was 100,000 Combats a year going out the door to people. So, I think, PSG and their team and the folks over there at Easton are going to look at it and say, hey, we have this plant, we have this technology, where can we put it? And we had already started a morph of some of the new stuff where we were combining, pre-preg and RTM composites, and the engineers were sharing things that they had learned between even the Bauer stick folks working in composites and whatnot, going back and forth and learning stuff on there. So I would be shocked if you didn't see that happen.
Awesome. Definitely keep an eye out for that. Last thing here, what's next for Don Cooper as far as coaching and any involvement with, the Easton brand and things like that moving forward?
Great questions. I haven't made all those decisions yet. I've had multiple dealers come forward and ask about the Derby girls, and what can we do to have them. They're a great marketing tool. They're a great marketing tool and represent both the brands that they're associated with and the other sponsors well. So the plan right now is for there to definitely be a 2017 version of the Derby girls. Who will be the secondary and third sponsor is yet to be determined. ASP right now, who was a great sponsor of us this year, is asked to still be involved, and they're working through some things. And, like I said, many of the dealers right now are feeling the same pinch that the manufacturers are feeling. So there's a lot of people out there are trying to figure out, and I'm sure most of your listeners and you have seen the same thing. They're struggling finding the sponsorships. You're struggling finding league sponsorships.
Definitely
the $1,000 and $2,000 sponsorships that used to be taken for granted are hard to come by these days. So
right.
That will definitely happen. The rest of our players that were under contract with Combat, obviously PSG's honoring all of those contracts, and we're working through places for those players to play. And a couple of sponsors have come forward that are looking at trying to keep the core of Team Combat together and run it back in in some form or fashion. So that's going on as well. And as far as me personally goes, no, out there trying to figure some things out. But my main goal right now is to get everything done here at Combat, make sure that all of our customers are taken care of. The end users out there have it. And then, we had 100 and some really, really good employees between the factory in Ottawa and here, and some of them have been around from day one. Some of them in the factory were actually around before Combat actually started. They were back in the old CE plant that we acquired to build Combat. So, it's been find as many homes for those people as you can has kind of been everybody's priority here. And then, after the World Series is over and everything else, we'll take a deep breath and figure out the rest.
Definitely. You were talking about, the Derby girls and that kind of thing. It just popped into my head. What about these guys with their signature bats? You got Griner, Washington, and Rogo. What are those guys going to do?
Yeah, and obviously PSG is going to honor those guys and take care of them, and so that type of stuff will. I can't say that there'll be a signature model next year because you never know what happens with those.
Right.
But, those are all things that are kind of fluid right now, and some dealers have stepped up and said, "Boy, I'd really like to have that." And so a lot of pieces are still being moved around right now.
Sounds like there's plans in place anyway to take care of them guys.
Yeah. I as much as we can anyway.
Right. Well, unless you have anything to add or anything you want to say or any.
Nope, I appreciate it. We definitely for all the people out there that have been loyal combatants and like yourself and the Combat folks, know that we genuinely appreciate everything that you guys have done and continue to do and will continue to do. And it's been an interesting, fun process and ride and learned so much, but met so many wonderful people throughout the entire process that it's hard to take a negative away from it. And like we all say, business is business, and you got to make business decisions. And hopefully this is the right decision, and it's going to help the PSG group as a whole, which employs a lot of people and takes care of a lot of dealers. And those are the things we've got to worry about. And I think most of the Combat guys are going to land in a great spot. And as far as the combatants themselves go, I told them next year if they're not back in Seattle, I'll come hunt every one of them down and thump them over the head. So Dave Hunter promised me that tradition won't die, even if they're not swinging combats. They're going to figure out something to do.
Awesome.
There'll be plenty of combats around. They're still going to be legal. We're paying the insurance. There's going to be warranty. So I told them no excuses next year, and we'll see how it happens. But it's too cool a thing to put together by folks like yourselves to let it die. And, it's something that I look forward to this year. I hosted all of them at my house, which my wife still thinks I'm a little bit sketchy on and crazy for. So, we had 75 to 80 people just come and hang out at our house all day and talk softball. She just stared at me most of the day and wondered what the heck I was thinking. But it's something that I just don't want to see go away. It means too much. I think it's what softball was meant to be originally, the fellowship and whatnot. So, I appreciate everything that folks like yourself have done for us.
Well, and we, likewise, the combatants, can't thank you enough. I mean, you went out of your way, you made us the combatant. That's for the softball fans, guys, and that meant a lot to us. And hopefully everything works out moving forward. We're going to try, and I'm sure everyone will still try and be loyal, and hopefully everything works out in the future for the brand and yourself.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for your time, and when we get
Absolutely.
this all posted up, we'll be sure and check it out on YouTube. I'll be on Facebook on the BP Hero, and be sure and get your tag in it.
You got it, sir.
All right, thanks, Don.
Thanks.
Bye.
And again, guys, big thanks for stopping in and checking this out. Thanks to Don Cooper. I didn't even know how to handle myself to close that interview. I got to stumbling and rambling around my words, but share it around. Be sure and like this video. Subscribe to the channel. I'm going to try and set up some more interviews with some more guys. I may have to get a video interview in here and there just to kind of mix things up a little bit. But nonetheless, I hope this is something moving forward that you guys are going to like. I'll definitely do more of it if it is. If you have anybody you want me to try and reach out to interview or anything like that, definitely let me know and I'll see what I can do. No promises. Don Cooper taking the time out of his day to do this for me meant the world to me, so I don't know what this means moving forward as far as who I'll be able to interview or anything else, but it's a good starting point. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.